Hello everyone, and welcome to Completing Cast. This is the one time a year we talk about something not video game related. But as you can see, football's a video game sometimes.
It is.
I also have a PS1 thing with Brady on it, which I think is just fascinating that he's on a PS1 game. And we're at the PS5 and he's still playing. I wish I could find it. It's like I think it's this exact same game, 2003.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something about it. Anyway, Brian Beversluis is with us. I did good.
Beversluis.
Beversluis.
Sluice. It's just Sluice.
Sluice. Okay. And I'm not restarting on that because I'll show.
You always mess it up. Anyway.
I always mess it up anyway. That's a yearly tradition.
Yep.
Stop having a hard name.
I can't. I want to legally change my name to Jones, but it's not happening. So. Brian Jones, I would enjoy that.
You could change it to Newton. Brian Newton.
That's too soon.
Yeah, too soon. I always have to wear my Cam Newton Pats jersey. As I was telling someone at my fantasy football draft last week, it still feels like a fever dream.
Yeah.
It's like Cam was on the Pats. I have this as proof.
Mm-hmm.
And the first 3 or 4 weeks, he was killing it. He had a bunch of rushing touchdowns. Then he got COVID, and I assume he came back.
He did come back
at some point, but it was nothing.
No, his whole that year he was just like everything went to crap with him after that.
Dude, having, without making this a thing, but having had COVID in October 2021, holy crap. Yeah. Like, it really affected me. For about a week straight, I could not get off the couch. So imagine doing that, assuming that it would hit him the same way, and then coming back to like a professional level of athletics. Holy moly.
Well, not only that, he actually went pescatarian not long before that, and a lot of people, and I think it's a stupid theory, but it could hold water, but apparently when he went, or not pescatarian, he was pescatarian and he went full vegan, and a lot of people think that when he slimmed down that his body kind of started getting punished a lot because of that.
I mean, for what he did, yeah.
I mean, they ran him into the ground, too, so that could be it, but, you know.
Yeah. Yes, Belichick certainly did that. Yeah. So Brian's here to talk about the 2022 NFL season. I say this every year to Brian and on air, but I am the least prepared I have been for this episode than any other year. I feel like every year of the NFL season, I know it's coming, and then I'm like, yep, it's here.
It does really seem to, like, you spend the entire offseason being like, oh, can the NFL be here already? And that just, like, hits you right in the face, like, once they kick it into preseason gear.
All of a sudden, it's like, once preseason starts, it's like, okay, it's here.
Yeah.
Brian is the social media coordinator. I was going to say organizer, and that would have been
It would have been the
awful.
same, yeah.
For CatScratchReader on SB Nation, which is why he's wearing his glorious Carolina Panthers Hawaiian shirt. I really like that.
This is a gift from my brother, and I never wear Hawaiian shirts, so I figured I'd wear it for this.
It's actually really, I think it's really nice personally.
Thank you.
If I had one in Bucks colors or Pats colors, I would totally wear it as well.
I think in Bucks colors it makes sense. Like, I've never been a fan of like this kind of thing with a Hawaiian shirt, but I'm gonna wear it to the Cayman Islands next week. So
that's right. See. Brian is going to be one of 2 people not at my fantasy draft, which will be right here in this spot in 4 days. Yeah, 4 days.
Seems right.
Because you'll be out of here. And it's the same Sunday every year, and he has to go to the Cayman Islands instead. Why would a financial advisor have to go to the Cayman Islands,
know, right?
Brian? Now that I think about it.
Right. I can't help it. That's what my parents planned for it. I don't get to see them that often.
That's okay.
It's whatever.
Once you move everything from the one account to the other, then it'll all be okay.
Exactly. Yep.
So 2022, there is a lot different in the NFL season. I feel like this probably every year, but I think more big players moved, especially quarterbacks, than previous years. One of the big ones, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, is Russell Wilson going to the Broncos.
I hate that.
We have, and we'll talk about the AFC West, which is amazing.
It is really good. Yeah.
We have Baker Mayfield going to the Carolina Panthers. We can't forget, I almost forgot his name, Carson Wentz going to the Commanders, which can people still use football team? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think football team is better than Commanders. I think Commanders was the worst name they could have chosen.
Yeah, it really...
I actually think that Dan Snyder specifically picked that name to make fans angry, because they had the red tail sitting right there for him.
Oh,
that would have been a great name. And it had historical significance and everything with America.
Yeah.
Would have been great. No, he went Commanders.
It's so, and a little bit's recency bias because we're used to these teams for years and years hearing their names. But Commanders is just lame. Like, maybe it's because it's the first time you're hearing it, but to me it sounds like the XFL would be back. The Commanders. The Chicago Commanders.
It's the XFL.
Right?
It's an XFL name, 100%. Yes.
You know, it doesn't have that, like, easiness of Buccaneers or Rams or Cowboys. Like, something that's, like, I don't know, very flows off the tongue. The Commanders is just like, okay, I get what you're trying to go with, but, like, I would rather have Generals.
The Generals would have been good.
The Washington Generals, the team that literally always plays the Harlem Globetrotters and lost like 3,000 times in a row. That name is better than the Commanders. I forget what it is. That the one time I think in history the Generals beat the Globetrotters. I guess it was like when Undertaker had to lose the streak or Goldberg had to lose the streak. Like, you got to lose the streak at some point, even if you're the Globetrotters.
I mean, that would have been a great game to attend.
I think it was like 50 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I might be wrong there, but I remember it being like a super, super long time ago. Because the Globetrotters have been going on for
yeah,
forever.
I've seen them. It's an interesting show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. It's kind of basketball, but not.
It's pro wrestling in the form of basketball.
Just like the XFL is pro wrestling in the
exactly
in the form of football. I do want to point out real quick, as you've been seeing back there, I have my 28-3 Edelman catch. Throw blanket. I forget the exact size. It's like maybe 4x3 or something like that. You know those things on Facebook where they're like, order a throw blanket. It's free and with shipping. It took me forever to find a picture that was like the right size and everything, because you know how that is. Like, if you don't get it exactly right, they're like, nope. But that's still one of my favorite things right there.
I enjoy the Falcons losing every time. And
let's actually segue to the NFC South, because technically Brian, obviously hardcore Panthers fan his whole life, and I followed Brady down to Tampa. So technically we're an NFC South podcast here.
We are.
Brian, how are the Panthers looking so far this offseason?
Well, Baker Mayfield was certainly an upgrade over Sam Darnold. I don't think that's a hot take. Basically, Carolina went into this offseason, and their primary goal was, number one, to find a good quarterback, or something like it, and to address the offensive line, which they did. They drafted Ike Ekwonu, a.k.a. known as Iggy Ekwonu, which I find to be awesome. Kind of like after, what's his name? Iggy Schultz? Or the Iggy Shuffle, whoever that guy
Yes,
is.
okay. Yeah.
So they got him in at the sixth overall pick in the draft, which he was actually considered to be potentially the best offensive player in the draft. So the fact that they got him at 6th overall, really good. So he's their starting left tackle. They signed Bradley Bozeman, who was the Ratbirds starting center last year.
Ratbirds is
the Ravens.
Ravens, but unless you're a Ravens fan, they're the Ratbirds.
Yeah. And then they signed Austin Corbett, who was the starting guard for the Super Bowl winning Rams. So that was pretty good.
I mean, that's the biggest thing they needed last year, it seemed. I mean, their offensive line was switched.
It was hard to watch. The last time that a season was so hard to watch was 2010 when Jimmy Clausen was starting. And that team won 2 games. For the first 3 weeks, the Panthers were watchable and fun, and then they just fell off a cliff. They really did.
Well, and I brought this up some point over the last week. Do we remember the time, especially if you're a fantasy football player, where Sam Darnold led the league in rushing touchdowns for 4 weeks?
He had throughout the first 3 weeks, he had 5 rushing touchdowns. He led the league, including all running backs in rushing touchdowns.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure he led quarterbacks for 5, 6, 7 weeks, something like that.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but literally more than running backs. It was pretty cool.
I mean, that's exactly what they would do. They'd get to the goal line and they'd just run. They'd have Christian McCaffrey, and then they'd be like, "Oh, actually, we're gonna have Sam Darnold running in," and it just worked.
So speaking of CMC, you have the first pick in my draft,
yes.
right?
I do.
I don't have a pick in the first 2 rounds. So, because remember I traded out.
I do remember, yes.
Who are you taking?
I haven't figured it out.
Really?
No,
okay.
I mean, so...
I will say I'm only in 2 leagues. In my other league, Jonathan Taylor went first.
So, for me, the thing about it is, as the person who's been watching and covering the Panthers for so long, I really think Baker is gonna lean on McCaffrey, where Taylor he's got Nyheim Hines in that backfield taking away his passes, so he's very much not touchdown dependent, but a lot of his points came from scoring a lot last year. Where McCaffrey, I think he has a safer floor, so that's where I'm kind of like measuring it. And on top of that, if McCaffrey hadn't been through the last 2 seasons, I like where he was injured for most of them, I think he would have been the first round overall pick again. So that's where I'm kind of struggling right now.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor, if you think about it, was with Wentz last year, and Wentz is one of those guys that can win a game, but he cannot, under any circumstances, win a game if he has to throw 40 times.
Right.
Like, it's just never going to happen in any situation. So, of course, you're going to run it a lot. Now with Matt Ryan, as much as, we like to meme that, it can win by throwing 30, 40 times.
Here's the flip side.
Okay.
Matt Ryan threw the ball to a running back more times than any other quarterback last year.
Ooh.
So that's where I'm like struggling.
Is that where the Jonathan Taylor part is coming from?
because Matt Ryan's gonna throw the ball to him. He just is. Now, granted, Nyheim Hines figures into that.
Hines is only a third downer, right? Or is he like pure?
He's like their pass catcher, but Taylor did catch passes last year. So it's one of those situations where it's like they're both in good situations, and in theory, you take one of them, you're probably fine. Like it doesn't really. You're not going to get screwed over unless one of them gets hurt. But I have to make that decision. Which one do I want to deal with? Do I want to take the upside of McCaffrey, who could catch 1,000 yards and
rush for 1,000 yards?
Yeah, rush for 1,000 yards, catch for 1,000 yards, or do I want to take Taylor, where I know he's going to get the rushing game there, and I'm kind of projecting based on what Matt Ryan did in Atlanta last year. So I don't know.
We play full point PPR, which I think at this point is the most common.
Seems like
by
the
far.
standard.
It seems like the standard. When we first started, I did no PPR because I wanted to be like hardcore, and honestly, I could still go back to it, although it would change how you draft and everything.
Right.
If it wasn't PPR, would you take CMC or Jonathan Taylor?
At that point, probably Taylor.
Okay.
But that's only because I feel like the whole tricky thing is that Carolina brought in Dante Foreman, who backed up Derrick Henry last year, and he filled in for Derrick Henry, and he actually did really well as Derrick Henry's backup when Henry was hurt. He could take away touchdowns from CMC. On top of that, they still have DJ Moore, they still have Robbie Anderson. Baker Mayfield is going to spread the ball around, so it's one of those things. Like, I don't know how many touchdowns he's going to score. So at that point, it's like, okay, Jonathan Taylor probably is the better play, but I don't know.
So in my league, and you can I guess judge me on this however you see fit. I had I believe the 4th pick, and my other guy Nathan had the 3rd pick, and I hate picking high up there because I just feel like it's all. I had Derrick Henry last year. I picked like 3rd or 4th, and it was great for a while until it wasn't when he got hurt. So I traded out of the 1st round, and so Nate has picks 3 and 4. And then I got his, I believe it was 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounders, or it might be 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounders.
I think it was 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
I think it's 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Yeah.
So essentially what I'm going on, and then obviously I give him like my last 2 picks or whatever to even it out. Obviously what I'm banking on is I'm not taking anyone 1st round till about, I guess that would be pick like 20 or so. But having picked 20 and 21 and then coming around at like 27 and 28, that I can get some really, really solid guys for that. Which is, we both got kind of screwed last year, me and Nate. Nate, and this is true, and I know fantasy football guys watching this will be like, no, it's not. It was true. We have a 12-team league. 8 teams make the playoffs. He scored the most points, and he didn't make the playoffs. He scored the most points in the league out of 8 teams out of 12 making it, and he got 9th.
That's happened to me before.
That's unbelievable. Like, I know fantasy's fantasy, but like, after that, him and I were talking, and we were like, you know what? Like, we both got kind of screwed. I got like super bad injuries, and he had that going on. I was like, let's go for it. You go with the high end thing. I'll go with all the middle rounds, and we'll see what it ends up doing better for. Because I know I'm not gonna have any guy that's like a bell cow, but I know I'm gonna have a bunch of people that like. I'll have some pretty solid flexes is essentially what that's going to come down to. So
right, you'll have a lot of options.
And of course, as someone pointed out, that's 1 or 2 more people to leave on my bench to score 40 points. So
that's how it works in fantasy.
That's how it works in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
The second you're like, who should I go with? Whoever you don't pick is gonna score.
Yeah, that was my situation last year because I was one of the teams who actually prepared for running backs. So I had at least one RB1 sitting on my bench at all times, so I had to make decisions.
Did you did you pick like 3 running backs first or whatever?
So what ended up happening was I drafted. I don't even remember my roster, but I drafted several running backs. I know I drafted the Steelers running back, Harris, and then I drafted Nick Chubb. So I had both of them on my team, and then I ended up getting Elijah Mitchell in free agency, and he ended up being an RB1 or RB2 most weeks when he was actually healthy. I just stashed him on bench for as long as I could, and when he wasn't healthy, I'd play whoever his backup was, because I ended up at one point having 3 49ers running backs on my roster. Yeah, so, I was able to. I was also then able to trade for. I traded away Kareem Hunt, who I got somehow, for Jonathan Taylor.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it sounds crazy now, but it made sense at the time.
Yeah, because Jonathan Taylor wasn't scoring touchdowns.
We would have not let the trade go through, like, if it was that ridiculous. Like, nowadays it would be impossible. But I remember at the time, and Nate, the guy who scored the most points, had him, and he was like, he hasn't scored a touchdown in like 6 weeks or something like that, or whatever it was, and he was like, whatever, I'll try. And then of course, like the next week, he scores like 3 touchdowns and gets 2 or 3 touchdowns, like essentially every game.
Then he turns into the RB1 of all fantasy. So I then was able to parlay off Najee Harris for Devontae Adams. So yeah, my team. That's the whole thing about wheeling and dealing. The one thing I will always impart as fantasy advice is, I often draft to have a position of very much strength. That way I can parlay that for other picks. So
that's what I did in my other one. It's a 3 wide receiver league. You start 3, and I have like 4 or 5 really solid guys. And I'm like, okay, I already have to start 3 of them, but then I have an extra one to kind of go there. Unfortunately, in that league, my running backs are really bad. I have to start the Pats guy. Oh my God, my brain. Damian Harris. I have to start Damian Harris. Which is not great because he does not catch the ball. Although he was really, he's higher ranked as an RB. Like, he was RB, like, I don't know, 15, 16, whatever. He's higher ranked than you think, but he doesn't have that PPR thing to back up on. So.
It's okay. The Patriots will run the ball quite a bit this year. So
yeah. I don't think that's going to change at all.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
So before we went into that, we went into the NFC South. So. One of the things I wanted to do here, we're not going to be as crazy long as we normally are. I wanted to go through each division, just give like a rough general idea what's going on. We'll pick our division winners and go from there. The one that we're going to focus the most on right now is the NFC South. Brian, I know you sent it to me earlier. I guess pull that. Yeah, so I'll go over my predictions for the NFC South.
Go ahead.
And we'll just kind of go from there. So I have the Bucs winning it at 13-4. Remember, there's 17 games. I literally wrote them all down as 16, and then was like, oh yeah. Saints at 10-7, Panthers at 9-8. I really think Baker will be able to change them pretty solid like that. And the Falcons, I think, are going to be awful. 4-13. I have them at.
So mine is Bucs 11-6 because this. Well, so here's the thing: the schedule for the NFC South really sucks this year. They play a ton of really good teams.
And to be fair, when I did not look at the schedule, I was just like, this is my feeling. Yeah.
I think 11-6 it's still conservative, but I feel like they are going to have some really tough games. Like, I know they play the Niners, they play the Packers, they play
the Cowboys to start the year, and that's not easy.
No, it's never easy against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They play, I think, the Ravens too. I'd have to look at their schedule. But
right.
I know the Panthers and Bucs schedule is very similar. So I have the Saints at 9-8. The only reason I
had them at 10-7. Yeah.
Their defense is going to be really good, but they also just let go of C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles, which was a bit of a head scratcher. So congratulations, Eagles fans. That's another steal for you guys.
It seems like maybe after almost 10 years, the salary cap is catching up to the Saints. Our joke was the salary cap doesn't exist because the Saints could just do whatever the hell they wanted, just constantly, and maybe it's finally catching up with them.
Well, the whole thing is with the salary cap. If you have a rich owner and they can pay out money in flat amounts, like signing bonuses, you have a lot of flexibility. That's actually what's been happening with the Panthers and David Tepper. David Tepper's just we have a guy with a giant cap hit this year. Okay, well I'm just going to pay him $20 million right now, and then it's going to get spread out for the next 3 years, and he can just do that. And some teams can, some teams can't.
Yeah.
So the Saints were able to do that for a long time. So we'll see. It really depends on Jameis Winston, but Michael Thomas is good, obviously, if he comes back to form. They just drafted Chris Olave, so they could end up being better than the Bucs. But
is he ready to go week 1, Michael Thomas?
I don't know. That's
okay.
the thing. I think he might be, but he's getting close, but who knows. Yeah. So I have the Panthers at 7-10.
Okay.
Part of that is just their schedule is really tough. Like, I think if they had the same schedule but from last year now, they might be pushing 9 wins, but it's just going to be rough. And Baker Mayfield, I really like him. I think he's definitely better than Sam Darnold. He's going to be behind the best offensive line they've had since like 2015. They have weapons. Their defense seems like it's going to be good. They may have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Really, it's just going to come down to what does Matt Rule look like, because he's had some poor situational play calling and some poor decisions, and that's how you lose games. So we'll see. Falcons, I have 3-14. Only reason I have 3 wins is because they're going to steal a win from either the Saints or the Panthers or the Bucs.
Oh yeah,
randomly.
I mean, it's very rare for a team to go 0-6 in their own division. It doesn't matter how bad you are; you're going to win a game in your division because you play them twice.
Yep.
I'm just hoping that Brady can finally beat the Saints. I know he beat them when it mattered most in the playoffs. Drew Brees' last game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's 0-4 against them in the regular season.
He is 0-4 against them in the regular season.
And the one, oh my god, the one last year was a Sunday Night Football game. I got home 20 minutes after it started and it was already over. It was 10-0. Saints had the ball already, and I was like, what's going on? And I think that's the one that ended up being 35-3 or something like that.
Yeah, the Saints can, when they have your number, they have your number.
Although they don't have Sean
Payton.
Yes, I was going to say
Sean Payton's no longer there.
As much of an absolute jerk that guy is, he's pretty knowledgeable about football.
He knows football. Yeah, I hate him to death, but he knows football. Their head coach Dennis Allen, former head coach of the Raiders. I like him though. He's the main reason their defense was so good over the last few years. So
okay.
He could be okay. He's definitely not the offensive mind that Sean Payton is, but that defense is going to be good.
We'll definitely see on that. I'm as always a little worried about the Saints. I don't think any Bucs or Saints fans, to be kind to the Panthers, have to worry about the Panthers winning the division.
Unless they go on a real tear, and that would be if their offensive line, because they currently have 4 new starters on the offensive line. So if their offensive line came out week 1 and was we're mid-season level, and Christian McCaffrey stayed healthy and their defense was as good as they were last year, then hey, maybe. But I don't see it yet.
Yeah. So again, just to go over, and how are we doing on time? We're actually doing really good.
We got plenty of time.
Awesome. So I wanted to go through each division real quick. We don't have records for these. I'm just giving a 1 to 4 how I think teams will go through. So we're going to start with the NFC. The NFC East. This one was tough. I think any sane individual is going to have either Cowboys or Eagles number 1. I have Cowboys number 1, and there's only one reason, and it's the silliest reason ever, but it's because the Eagles won it last year. But in all, we've seen the stats. There hasn't been a two time in a row winner in the NFC East in 15 years, 12 years, something like that. It's insane. You don't think about it.
They're a shenanigans division. Yeah.
The football team won the division twice in the last 10 years. You think of the football team as being a dumpster fire ever since RG3. They've won the division since RG3.
Right.
So it like I said, because it's a shenanigans division, like you said, I have the Cowboys first, then I have the Eagles second, the Commanders third, and then the Giants fourth. I do have the Eagles as making one of the wild cards. There's 3 wild cards now in each conference.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip you. I think the Eagles are gonna win the division, but only because they've had their offseason has been nuts. They got James Bradbury from the Giants. Well, they didn't trade for him, but they signed him in free agency. They got him mad cheap, and he's an all-pro level corner. He at least was at one point in his career. Then they just got C.J. Gardner-Johnson for pennies in trades with the Saints. They traded away a 5th-round pick, got a 7th-round pick back, and the Saints will then get the better of the 6th-round picks they have in 2024.
Yeah.
What kind of trade is that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, just release it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Granted, the Eagles can't really seem to draft wide receivers, so Devontae Freeman's good. I know they got what's his face, AJ Brown from the Titans, and that was a good pick for them as well, rather than trying to flail again to get a 1st-round wide receiver. So it's all going to revolve around Jalen Hurts. That's really what it is. Like, their team is built to go to the Super Bowl if their quarterback is good. So
I don't know if their defensive line and potentially their offensive line.
Their defensive line is good. Yeah, their defensive line is
Fletcher Cox is not what he once was.
But that's the thing is they don't need him to be what he was because they just drafted a giant defensive tackle in the draft.
Okay.
They still have great edge rushers, you know.
Brandon Graham and all that, yeah.
They have, I think they still have Nick Barnett too, and they have or maybe it's Derek Barnett, but yeah, they have a really good front seven. They have a really, really good. And Hassan Reddick, the Panthers' leading sack player last year. I think he had 14 sacks or something like that. He's on the Eagles now too. Like, you know, it's
again my heart wanted to go Eagles. Well, I didn't want to. I don't like the Eagles.
No,
I feel the
I don't
Eagles.
like Eagles fans.
Yeah,
I don't mind the Eagles. But
I mean, I don't dislike any Eagles players, but if Eagles fans are going to be so bad,
right,
I'm going to dislike the franchise. Just like anyone who tells me, "Oh, Pats fans are bad," I'd be like, "Yeah."
Yeah,
of course.
Right.
It's the ones who are the one thing I'll give the Eagles credit for is people be like, "Oh, Eagles fans are bad," and then Eagles fans will be like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Like
we're horrible.
That's much better than Cowboys fans who are like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like they're like sincere. Like, "What?
Right.
We're bad." It's like, dude,
we're
come
insufferable?
on.
No way. Yeah.
So yeah, and I don't think you have any. I'm guessing you have Cowboys second.
Yeah, my picks would be Cowboys second, though it's possible Washington. The thing about Washington is they have a lot of talent. Like, it's all about Carson Wentz, really. But that defensive line, like, Washington has 3 first-round picks, high first-round picks on their defensive line.
And Ron Rivera as the essentially D coordinator.
Yeah, all it takes is that's the thing about the NFL is that all it takes is that one team, like you saw with the Giants twice.
Yep.
Like, if they have a really strong defensive line that gets after the quarterback and wrecks the running game, it's all up in the air at that point. They got really good players there.
Yeah.
Like, they really do. So.
And I know it's a chicken or the egg thing where it's like, would you rather have a lockdown secondary or a lockdown front 4, front 7? I feel that I would always rather have a super strong front 7 because, yes, coverage sacks exist. A coverage sack is essentially like if the secondary is so good at covering that eventually they just get sacked.
Yeah.
But I feel that is much less likely than just, bull rush. That kind of thing takes away so many other problems.
Right.
Your secondary could be bad, and it doesn't matter at that point.
Yep.
Heck, your linebackers could be bad, and it doesn't matter if your front 4 are...
If your front 4 are throwing off everything as far as the timing goes, then yeah, that's...
I mean, that's why people like Von Miller, he's like in his 30s, and he just got signed for how much? You know what I mean? Like, that's the reason, you know? So, and then I'm guessing Giants.
Giants are last. Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they got much better from what I've seen. And I don't want to use the line, it all comes down to the quarterback for every team because, duh. Right? But, like, I don't even think Danny Dimes could, like, make them good at this point. It just doesn't seem like a great setup at this point.
No, it's really not. I mean, their offensive line, I will give them credit. They've done a lot to make their offensive line better. I mean, they just drafted Andrew Thomas, like, a year or 2 ago, and he turned out to be a really good left tackle. They just drafted the second-best offensive tackle in this draft. So they're trying. They're trying to be good, but I like Kadarius Toney a lot. He's a great playmaker, but he's not a wide receiver 1. He's just not. You can't. So if they play him the right way, he could have 1,400 yards this season. But I just don't trust the Giants. I just don't.
They're just going to put him on the outside as a wide receiver 1 kind of thing.
Maybe. Yeah. Who knows?
Okay, so that's the NFC East. Like I said, I do have the Eagles as a wild card. You don't have to think that deep on that. I have my wild cards marked and everything.
Right.
NFC West, I think, is going to be a really interesting division.
Oh, yeah.
So I have Rams first, Cards second, 49ers third, and Seahawks last. And my rationale is I wanted to put the Cards first, but they won't have Hopkins for 6 games, and I just feel they're not at that level that the Rams are yet. I have the 49ers third, so while they probably have the best 53-man roster out of all those, they're not, unless something changed, they're not going with Jimmy. Is Jimmy G still on the team?
Jimmy G was, they restructured his contract to make him basically like one of the highest paid backups in the NFL.
Okay, so I I feel the same way about Trey Lance without seeing very much on him that I feel about the Bears quarterback. It's
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. I feel the same way about them. I just don't think they have it. And like, there's sometimes where you see him start out and you're like, I just don't think they have it. That's how I felt about Sam Darnold when I saw him. I was like, I just don't think he has it, you know. And that's how I feel about Trey Lance. And if they stick with him too long and, you know, start 2-5, 3-6, whatever, they're probably not going to win the division at that point unless they go like on a real tear. Rams, like I said, I have them there just because defending champs. There is a lot of times where they'll drop off, but I just can't see the Cards the way they're made. Sorry, Nathan, huge Cards fan. Getting over that. Again, 49ers would be first, even if they had Jimmy G or anyone besides Trey Lance. And the Seahawks are a dumpster fire this year.
So my only change to that, Rams I have first, because they just really didn't change much since last year, aside from letting Von Miller go. And I still think they would have probably won the Super Bowl, even if he wasn't there. Rams first for me. I actually have the 49ers second, but it's only because their offense is so quarterback proof. Like they run the ball extremely well. So that's where I look at it. Like Jimmy G, there were so many games where he threw for like 150 yards and they still won. So
I know, but like the problem with that is, and this is a lot of offenses kind of like the Kyle Shanahan, if you're ahead or even tied, very little chance you're gonna saying that about a Kyle Shanahan team. If you're ahead, you got this. Mm-hmm. But if you're behind, if you find yourself behind by 10, you can't just run for 7 yards over and over again. Right. It's just, yes, you can, but it's one of those things where you gotta get your foot on the gas pedal, get going. And I feel like if they get behind at any point, Trey Lance has to do anything at all. Yeah, and that's gonna be difficult.
We'll see. The only reason I also feel that way is because their defense is just nuts, like it always has been.
Yes.
Or at least over the last few years. What was I gonna say? Seahawks. Cardinals. The other thing is the Cardinals seem to fall apart halfway through the season. It's happened 2 times it's happened the last 2 seasons. They seem to fall apart. So we'll see.
I believe in Kyler Murray more than I believe in Cliff Kingsbury, who I think this is his 3rd year or whatever, just seems to be out of his element. That it's just one of those things where, to go back several years to Super Bowl 49, Seahawks versus Patriots, the clock's running, going down to about 30, 25 seconds. Belichick has 2 timeouts. And he's just standing on the sideline, and the coaches come up to him and go, do you want to call a timeout? And he goes, no, I got it. Because he's watching Carroll. He's watching Pete Carroll, who just does not have his crap together at that point. Not that he called Malcolm Butler doing an interception kind of thing, but I remember when that was happening, I was like, dude, they're going to score. Call the timeout. Get the timer, whatever. But that's the kind of stuff, that intricate knowledge that, again, a Matt Rule might not have, right. Cliff Kingsbury might not have. And I was yelling so loud at the TV when he was doing that because I was like, you're an idiot. How could you be so smart but so stupid to not call that timeout? But and the Seahawks had timeouts, but they just were like, we got our foot on the gas pedal, let's do this, let's go. Oh, we called the pass, and the rest is history. Yeah. Obviously, in football, when it comes down to one play, if they would have scored there, then Belichick's a huge idiot. Yeah. But there's something about being willing to take those chances that I don't see in a Kingsbury. So. No. I do have the Cards making a wild card spot because again, there's 3 of them. Okay, the NFC North. This is not interesting. I have I think there's 2. This and the AFC South. I'm like not interested in at all. I have the Packers, then the Vikings, then the Bears, then the Lions. Oh my.
I agree with that. I will say
it seems like it's the same thing every year.
I will say this is, if there's any year for the Vikings to usurp the Packers, it's this one. Because the Packers' offense just looks like crap on paper. Like Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, who's the other guy? Oh, Sammy Watkins. Those are their top 3 wide receivers. And their top tight end is Martellus Bennett, who is 38 years old. And then
wait, what?
Yeah.
Wasn't he retired?
He came back.
What?
Yeah.
The guy who was with the Pats like 6 years ago?
Yep.
No, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
Yeah, and then
he was going for like 3 or 4 years.
Then they have 4 other tight ends on their roster. none of which I've heard of, and the only one who had any kind of real stats had like 230 yards last year receiving.
Remember that one guy who had 2 touchdowns in one game and everyone picked him up?
Yeah.
Tanyan?
Yeah, it might have been Tanyan.
Robert Tanyan or something like that?
Yeah. So they have that. I looked at their offensive line. It was actually just funny because someone asked me today, like, what do you think of the Packers? So I actually went and looked at them, and their offensive line is a lot of guys who didn't even start all the games last year.
Yep.
So that, like, they have their 2 running backs. They have Aaron Rodgers. That's their offense, basically. Their defense is going to be good, but the Vikings, as always, have a very strong roster. It's just going to come around Kirk Cousins. So I'm going to say the Packers are going to win the division, but if we look back on this in the playoffs next year and the Vikings end up winning it,
I do have the Vikings as the 3rd wild card. I do have the Vikings because I don't think a wild card is going to come out of the NFC South. I don't feel it on that. So yeah, I have them as the 3rd wild card. Kirk Cousins is one of the weirdest players in the NFL because if you look at his stats, you're like, wow. Like there's so many pictures going around, like memes going around right now where it's like, hey, what if you had 4,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions? You'd like that guy, right? That's Kirk Cousins. Like essentially just that over and over again. And yeah, it just comes down to him, really. I mean, I heard that their defense was really bad last year, and maybe they're getting better at this point. I am not a defensive minded enough person to like really know the intricate differences, but it all comes down to that. New coach, Mike Zimmer's not there anymore after a long time. I would like it because I like to see differences in the NFL and the Packers not winning it for once, but I just don't believe it. And just really quickly, the Bears, I don't believe in Justin Fields. I don't know if I can name their wide receiver 1. Darnell Mooney. I definitely can't name their wide receiver 2. I don't think I can name their tight end unless it's Jimmy Graham again.
Cole Kmet is their tight end, but he's...
And
okay.
David Montgomery never gives me anything to get real excited for.
Yeah.
But again, their whole offensive scheme for the longest time doesn't give you anything. Being a Bears fan would be so boring because it's like you're not getting blown the crap out, so you're like, oh, we're so bad. And you're not ever like doing anything exciting in terms of losing by a bunch, winning by a bunch. It's like, we lost 10-7. Right. We lost 17-10, or we won 17-10. It's like there's nothing interesting about it.
Yep.
And the Lions I have 4th, they were real bad last year.
Yeah, they're going to be bad. It's just, it is what it is.
It is, and I really want the Lions to do good. They're one of those teams I really want to do good. Nice. So, again, I had, personally, I'm just going to do my NFC playoff thing real quick. I had the Bucs with a bye, which I'm just looking at it, and I'm thinking, the Packers aren't that super strong, and I see the NFC West, and I see the Rams, Cards, and 49ers beating up on each other. It's the NFC East thing every year. Every year they're like, oh, except for 2017 when they actually did, but like every year everyone's like, oh, our team's going to go 14-3 or whatever. But the NFC East beats up on each other, which is why like the Cowboys, I think, might be the 2nd or 3rd there. The Rams will probably be number 2. I think I have them as such. But yeah, I have the the Bucs as number 1. In the wild card round, I have the 2nd seed Packers against the 7th seed Vikings, and because Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins, I have the 7th seed Vikings winning because memes. I mean, none of this is going to come true, so I might as well live my dreams. I have the 3 Rams versus the 6 Saints, which is a replay of 2018 NFC Championship game with the Rams winning, and I have the Cowboys playing the Eagles, Cowboys at home, and the Cowboys winning. That probably won't happen because Dak, but whatever. Then in the NFC Divisional, I have the 1st seed Bucs versus the 7th seed Vikings. Bucs move on. Then I have the 3 seed Rams versus the 4th seed Cowboys. Rams move on. Bucs versus Rams. Brady's farewell tour. Just like in 2015, if you put money on Peyton Manning winning the Super Bowl, if you're a betting guy, I mean,
yeah,
put money on it. And like, do I think they're the best team in the NFL? No. Do I think they're top 5 or top 6? Sure. They're a really good team, but whether it's help from above, if you know what I mean, or whether it's Brady and them actually doing it, I think the Bucs are going to the Super Bowl because, again, it's his farewell tour, and that 2015 Peyton team had no reason to win, and yet somehow they just kept going on.
Yep.
Do you have anything to say about that before we move on to the AFC?
No, I 100% agree. I think the Bucs would be my pick to go to the Super Bowl 100%. So.
I still cannot believe that the Bucs tied that game up against the Rams, and it would have been the Bucs in the Super Bowl, and the Bucs would have won that against. I mean, the Bucs would have killed the Bengals. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but they would have.
have.
It would have been even worse than how the Rams was. They tied that game being down like 24 points, I think it was, and all it took was Cooper Kupp being a god and getting like a 50-yard catch when it should have went to overtime. Anyway, whatever. That's football for you.
That's football.
All right, so AFC East. Let me save the AFC West for last. Let's go from least interesting to most interesting. We're still going to do it good on time. We'll probably be able to get done with this subject and then be good to go, which I'm cool with. AFC South, least interesting. I have the Colts winning because Matt Ryan is an improvement over Carson Wentz. I know, shocker of the year.
Right.
Then I have the Titans, and then the Jags, and then the Texans. I mean, the Texans are going to be a dumpster fire, right?
They were scrappy last year, but they also have a new coach again.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Do you have any thought? And I do have the Titans getting a wild card spot.
The Titans probably will get the wild card spot. I think this is a good year for them, for Ryan Tannehill to just take over. Malik Willis has been really impressive, but also it's preseason. He's really athletic, so that tends to happen. I don't see him taking over that spot. They're going to live and die by Derrick Henry. Their defense is probably a little bit worse. Their offense is probably a little bit worse overall. I still think they'll get the second. So
it's a weak division too.
Yeah, it just.
I mean, you put the Titans in the AFC West, and they are guaranteed fourth if you take the Raiders out, and and they could be fifth. So if you have them all in there, so yeah. Colts and Titans, Jags and Texans. I don't have anything to say about the Jags. I really wish the best for them. I mean, the Urban Meyer stuff. It's like a fever dream, right? Like it's unbelievable. But I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence, which is weird to say because he's like always been like the number one everything his entire life. But I feel bad for how they've been down there, and I feel bad for the Texans because they actually got rid of Watson.
Yeah.
and we won't go into that. Besides with the only thing we'll mention about that is the fact that he is suspended with the Browns because I
suspended for 11 games.
Don't need to hear anything else about that. But yeah, they're not going to be a very good team.
No.
I think the second least interesting is the AFC East, where I think the Bills will win by 3-4 games.
Probably. They're really, really good.
The Bills are probably, just looking at it right here, gotta be a top 3 53-man roster in the NFL.
Oh yeah,
if not one, you can make the.
They literally had all of their second string people out against the Panthers on Friday, and their defense still gave the Panthers problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're a really good team. I think the X factor is actually Stephon Diggs. If he gets hurt or something like that, his connection with Josh Allen is so big that if you take him out of there, their number 2, is it Isaiah McKenzie, or am I thinking of a different team?
I don't actually know. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I know they have a couple good receivers.
Yeah. They have a couple good guys, but no one on the level of Stephon Diggs.
Right.
Their tight end is forgettable. Their running backs are... Is Singletary still their number 1?
Yeah, Devin Singletary's still there. They also have Zach Moss. Apparently he's pretty good, being pretty good for them.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's Josh Allen's team.
Yep. But, again, if Stephon Diggs goes down for a period of time... That's a much different offense. It's still a great defense, especially with Von Miller added. But, again, that's something they're going to have to worry about in the playoffs. Something catastrophic would have to happen for them not to win the AFC East. It's just, in fact, I would go as far to say they're probably the biggest gap between 1 and 2. That doesn't mean they're the best team, but maybe Packers and Vikings might be about there. I have the Pats as number 2 because I'm probably a homer. I think they still have a pretty good defense. I originally actually wrote the Dolphins there, and then I crossed it out because I was like, whatever, this is my podcast.
Yeah.
But if you would say the Dolphins would be second, I wouldn't disagree with
That's
you.
what I would say.
Yeah.
They're just really talented.
Yeah. And again, that one, the only reason, if they had someone more that I trust more than Tua, I would go, oh, they're easy second. But because Tua and everything, we'll see.
Yep.
So yeah, you have Pats third and then Jets fourth. I don't really see much change.
I mean, the Jets are assembling themselves a very young roster with a lot of promise, but they're not there yet.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, and I do not have anyone making the wild card out of there. Surprise, surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have the AFC North, where I have the Bengals winning it. I have the Ravens 2, the Browns 3, and the Steelers 4. I think you could make you could convince me the Browns and Steelers could switch spots because of the 11-game suspension by Watson. But I actually think the Browns still have a really good roster. And I'm not saying the Browns will be good. I'm talking like, I don't know, 7-10 or something like that. But
yeah.
I think the Steelers will be pretty not.
If they had
great.
Watson all year, I would think the Browns are pushing to win that division.
Yes.
But they
Yes.
just don't, and
Yes.
it is what it is. I agree with your ranking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome to put the Bengals there and not really have to like worry about that. I really like Joe Burrow. I honestly think that he is, and no one's going to be the next Tom Brady, but I think he's going to be this generation's Joe Montana, Tom Brady, whatever. He might not ever get to that level, but he has that that certain unbreakable like leadership, that unbreakable like you just see him on the sidelines and he's not affected.
No.
Yeah, there's something about him with that. And again, with LSU and winning the national championship and all that.
Yeah, he's been through it all.
Yeah.
And he's got his Jerry Rice, too.
Yes. He certainly does.
Yeah, that kid is really, really good.
Yeah.
So, and he's got two other guys who could be easily wide receiver ones on less talented rosters.
T.
Higgins and what's his face? The slot guy.
Tyler Boyd.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if he'd be a wide receiver one, but just the fact that you got like a guy like him there, like, yeah, it's just.
And I think that for Burrow, getting so close last year is going to light even more of a fire under him.
Well, all they did was rebuild, was try to get more offensive linemen and build on their defense.
That's essentially the difference between them. I mean, because the Bengals stayed in that game the whole time.
Yeah.
And in fact, if I remember correctly, they were near the 50-yard line near the end of the game.
They almost
when
almost
Aaron Donald them. So
Yeah.
they almost won that.
Yeah.
That was the difference, is the O-line. 100% was the difference in that game. So Ravens, I think, will be fine.
Depends on if they get the Ravens injury bug, which they tend to do.
And I'm just really surprised by seeing that they gave up by far the most 40-yard plus plays last year. I mean, I knew their defense wasn't what it once was when like Brady and Flacco were doing their really weird thing.
Yeah.
But it surprised me to see that their defense is actually not that great. Matthew Judon used to be on them, and now he's a Pat he's just an awesome player. So, yeah, I don't really have much to... And then the Browns, again, could be number one, but they're not, because they're starting someone.
Jacoby
Brissett, that's right. I heard that the other day, and Jacoby's one of those people I really like. Like, he's not going to win them like a lot of games, but I do like him starting.
He could very well be that kind of quarterback where he'll win if the rest of the team does extremely well. They just need him to make a couple plays.
Yep.
So it's possible.
Yep.
I just don't see it, and I know Baker Mayfield is going to beat the crap out of him on week 1. I know that.
Yes.
That's going to happen. So
that is... Baker, they done Baker bad, man.
They really did.
I think I said it last week to Brian before I did one of his podcasts. Like, imagine going like 0-16 5 years ago, and then like 3 or 4 years later, making the playoffs, going to your biggest rival's home stadium, winning in the playoffs, and then the next year they're like, actually, that guy sucks.
Yeah.
They beat the Steelers. They beat the Steelers.
Yep.
In Hines.
Yep, exactly.
In the playoffs. Like, this is the Browns. This isn't like at this point the Bills or Rams, if they won one playoff game, it wouldn't be acceptable. This is to the point where that's acceptable and you build on it.
Yeah,
but
you're
whatever.
overachieving there, yep.
Whatever. So the most interesting, and I don't think this is a hot take, division in football is the AFC West, where I have, and honestly, dude, you could put this in any order. I have the Chargers number 1. My betting man and my mind doesn't want to have the Chargers number 1, but my heart wants to have the Chargers number 1. I have the Chiefs number 2, the Broncos number 3, and the Raiders number 4. I do have both the Chiefs and Broncos having playoff spots. Because, like I said, the Titans had 1. I don't think any team in the AFC East is good enough. The AFC is pretty weak this year. I don't know if it's possible because of, like, scheduling, but I would not be surprised to see all 4 of them have playoff spots. I don't know if that's mathematically possible, but when you look at the other teams, the Ravens, Browns, Steelers, do I see any of those making them? No. The Pats, Dolphins, Jets, maybe the Dolphins, making a playoff spot. But, yeah, so Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, and Raiders for me.
I got Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs,
I like it.
Raiders.
I like it. So, you'll see my Broncos thing later, but go on.
Well, part of it is just that the Chiefs' wide receivers and the offensive weapons are not as good as they were. Like, Tyreek Hill's a big loss for them.
It is.
So
it is.
That's the kind of player where he being down the field all the time, defenses have to account for him. That's how Travis Kelce eats because of that. He's not there anymore. Now they have a bunch of speed guys.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I think the Broncos are by far the best roster there, but the Chargers are very good as well. Like, they're definitely neck and neck.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I feel, but it's really just a crapshoot.
I'm guessing, despite the fact that they're still a pretty good team, both of us have the Raiders as 4 then.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I like Derek Carr. I like what they've been doing. They were a scrappy freaking team last year. It's possible they could end up sneaking into that second or third spot, but
I mean, looking at this
on paper, I can't do it.
I could see if they were in another division, they would definitely, almost any other division in football, they would be the second seed, the second in the division. If not, you put them in the AFC South, which stinks. They'd probably be number 1 over the Colts. Put them in the NFC North versus the Packers. And again, this is just, whatever. They could be over the Packers, but it just stinks they're in that division where it's just so brutal.
Yep.
Okay, so my wildcard teams were the Titans, Chiefs, and Broncos, and here's how I have the AFC going. I have the Bills with a bye. I guess the only other team that could possibly get that bye would maybe be the Broncos for you. But I look at the AFC West; they're going to beat on each other so much.
Yeah, they are.
That it's going to be maybe but when I look at the Bengals, no one ever gets out of AFC North football with like a 6-0 record. It's like 4-2 max because that's just how AFC North football is.
Scrappy football.
Yeah. So I have Bills as the bye. I have the 2 seed Bengals versus the number 7 seed Broncos. I have the Broncos winning. There's something about I love Joe Burrow, but there's something about Russell really needing to prove it. I have the 3 Chargers versus the 6 Titans. And unfortunately, I have the 6 Titans winning because, again, who's the better squad? Easily Chargers, but the Chargers are the Chargers. If you've watched this far, you know the Chargers are tragic.
Yep, they are just tragic.
The 2010 Chargers led football in number 1 offense, number 1 defense.
Yeah, number 1 defense, number 1 offense.
And they didn't make the playoffs.
They had the worst special teams in the league.
Like of all time.
Yep.
Like one of the worst of all time.
Yep.
How can you do that? How can you be the number 1?
Yep.
Both. All right. So in the last wild card one, I have the Colts versus the Chiefs, where I do have the Chiefs moving on. Then in the divisional, I have the Bills versus the Broncos, where I have the Broncos moving on. I think, again, I just have this weird feeling. I can't really give you like a rationale for it. I was just writing it out, and I was like, this looks good. Then I have the Chiefs versus the Titans, where I have the Chiefs going on. Then AFC Championship game, I have Broncos versus Chiefs, where I have the Broncos moving on. So I think that we're headed for a Brady versus Russell.
That was what I was thinking too.
Really?
I think,
Nuh-uh.
Get
out of
here.
here.
Where my head was at.
The
Brady Wilson rematch because it's just prime time TV.
It's just too good, right? Yeah. I mean, the whole 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
The whole 2 weeks, you just show the Butler interception over and over again. That you talk to him about that. Hey Brady, this is 8 years later, and you show the Max Kellerman thing. I think he's already over the hill. He's off the. It's so easy. Remember, Max Kellerman said that 4 Super Bowl wins ago.
Yep.
He said that before Brady won against the Seahawks.
That's because Max Kellerman needs to drum up interest and intrigue. So.
Did you really have like potentially Bucks versus Broncos? Wow.
Yeah.
And I probably had it a different way than you because you had them winning the division and hell maybe even being like number 1 or 2 seed. But I just have this feeling with Russell Wilson. I'm just really I'm not a Broncos fan at all. I've always very much disliked them because they were a big Pats opponent.
Yeah.
But there's something about it I just feel this year. And again, we're just talking out of our butts.
You're going to get angry Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Because the Seahawks didn't do what he needed them to do. So the Broncos were like, yeah, come on over. We'll get you all the weapons. We'll get you an offensive line. We'll get you a defense. Absolutely.
I mean, angry Russell Wilson is like angry Brady.
Yeah.
Which is why when I was putting it together, I was like, duh. Like when I wrote it down, I was like, duh. And I just, again, wherever you think this comes from, whether it's the GM above or whatever,
Yeah.
I just feel that put all your money on the... No.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Your extra fun income that you're like, it doesn't matter if I lose this. Put it on the Bucs to win, because I'm just getting 25 Peyton Manning vibes. Although Brady 7 years later is 50,000 times better than Manning was at the time. So that's really weird that we worked it out that way, because I don't know. I just put it together and I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And there are better teams on paper, but as we know with the NFL playoffs, it never works that way.
Quarterbacks with the clutch factor. Wilson and Brady both have that. We haven't seen it from Herbert yet, so.
Yeah. I want that. There's some teams on here I want to do so good. Like when Brady retires, like there's a lot of teams I want to see like really, like the Bengals. Seeing the Bengals like starting to do good, I'm like so happy for their fans.
Yeah, they really deserve it.
A lot of these teams really deserve it, but I mean, Commanders fans really Ron Rivera deserves it, but
absolutely.
Dan Snyder, so
Dan Snyder, he sucks. He's awful.
He really is. I want to thank Brian once again for being with us. We're going to try our best to do this again next year. Maybe even if we're feeling a little spicy after the season, to look at this and go, wow, can you believe I said the Bucs were going to win the Super Bowl when the Vikings won the Super Bowl? That's weird to say. I can't even say that.
It's not impossible, so you never know. There's always that one weird team every few years that comes out of nowhere and wins it. So,
that is true. That is true. Well, hey, thank you guys for watching. We very much appreciate it. And CatScratchReader, check it out on SB Nation. Carolina Panthers, they're a lovable team. And as we all know, screw the Saints.
Yep, screw
forever.
The Saints. Enjoy week 1. Hopefully Baker really does go scorched earth on the Browns. I would enjoy that.
I'm so excited. That's going to be the main one on my television, especially since the Bucs play Sunday Night Football. So
yep.
Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.